Hi guys, welcome to Dubs Only Sports. This is episode 38. As you can see, Dylan's wearing his Argentina shirt. I'm wearing my England shirt. That can only mean one thing. We're talking about the World Cup today. And for the first time, Women's World Cup has been going on. They're finally in the playoff stages. And Dylan and I, being American citizens here, of course, we're going to go out of our way to watch America, not only America, but watch America lose to Sweden in PKs. Now, first things first, just kind of some reactions on the game. I'll go first just while it's fresh in my mind and I don't forget. I stayed up, I watched the game. I'm more of an England supporter than I am an American supporter, but I'll support America because I'm American, whatever, right? So, watching the game, I really am taking away a lot of things from this World Cup. I feel like this is somewhat of my first introduction to women's football. Definitely isn't my first time watching it. I watched the World Cup when it was in Canada, and that was a few years ago when the US, pretty sure they won that as well, because US are top tier, they're number one. Not right now, but at one point they were. You watch the World Cup for that, because why not? But the thing that I am taking away from the Women's World Cup more than anything is that it's got to change. And as a lot of you know, there's a huge argument between the wage gap in the female athletes, not only in professional football, but also in basketball and other highly regarded women's sports around the world and around the nation. Now, the big takeaway that I saw in the Sweden US game is that you would have a lot of these women, they would be running from midfield to the 18-yard box. That's just how the game goes, right? You have a good pass, you have a breakaway, whatever, you run to the box, you score a goal. That's how the game is played. I can't help but notice the fact that a lot of these women, by the time they get to the 18-yard box, they're worn out, they're tired, they're gasping for air. And granted, like that is something that naturally happens to all human beings, whether you're male, female, whatever you identify as. But I can't help but notice that that then plays a toll for the next 5 minutes to a point where it is so back and forth between them because everyone is just so tired. And this leads me to my conclusion and to what I think should be brought up and possibly put into play for not only women's football, but women's basketball and a lot of other women's sports. Now, Shaquille O'Neal, right? We all know who Shaquille O'Neal is. He said on some show, some whatever, I remember a clip of Shaquille O'Neal talking about how women's sports should abide to this volleyball rule. Now, if you've ever watched male volleyball and you ever watch female volleyball, the net is lowered for the female athletes. So because they can't jump as high as the men, it'll be naturally more competitive, and it allows them to play the sport to the best of their ability. With that said, I think he makes a pretty good argument when we say that we should adopt the volleyball rule into all of professional sports, including football. So that means making the field just a little bit smaller and making the goal sizes also a little bit smaller. My biggest piece of evidence for this is looking at Japan play. I've watched Japan play a few times, and to be fair, they're pretty short. Like the average height for Japan is not that tall. And then you got to keep in mind, well, the goalkeeper also isn't that tall. So when you're looking at a goal that is supposed to, is the same size for the men, but the women can't even hit the top post, obviously it's such a big advantage for the women to aim for that top post every single time. And all the goals that you see, if you watch any highlight reel, majority of these goals are going into those top bins, top middle, because they can't jump up and they can't reach the ball. When you look at Megan Rapinoe, she missed that PK. Where was she aiming? Top of the goal, because they can't reach it. All I'm saying, and it has nothing to do with, like how competitive you are or anything like that. It's just biologically and naturally, it would make more sense. And especially where the argument is being formed that you want people to watch your sport more often because you think it is more competitive than the male sport and you think it is more entertaining. Fine. But don't you think that you should bring it down to a smaller scale so that you yourself can play to the potential that you want to play at instead of trying to compete with the men that have to play on these bigger sizes and on these bigger fields because the lung capacity is bigger and there are other factors that really play into it. Again, it has nothing to do with how capable I think you are. I just feel like if you really want to hone in on the problem of, oh, people aren't taking us seriously, I think there are a few solutions. And off the bat, watching Shaquille O'Neal's clip, I think this is a very interesting point to make the field sizes smaller. You look at the WNBA, make the rim just a little bit, just bring it down a little bit. The argument that I hear from tons of people and tons of sports fans who claim that they're sports fans but won't watch the WNBA, the number one go-to is, oh, well, you never see a WNBA player dunk. And it's like, yeah, that's true. Now imagine if we brought that rim down a little bit. Oh, imagine people like Ajayi Wilson, even people like Kelsey Plum could get up there. And she's not exactly the tallest person in the group. Look at people like Brittany Griner. Like they would be dunking 10 out of 10 times, but they can't because the rim is still too high for them. So again, it's no diss on women. It's no diss on female sports. It's just there are ways that you definitely can make the sport more entertaining. And I'm not saying that this is the solution, but I feel like when watching that video of Shaq and watching that clip, I feel like an interesting point was brought up. And I think it's a point that a lot of people don't really look at because they're looking at, oh, well, how can we sell more jerseys? How can we popularize the game for what it is? Well, why don't we change the game? I mean, you look at all these rules that are changing in the NFL and the MLB. Why don't we do that on a global stage? So again, going back to the Women's World Cup, all I see is these women are getting worn out very easily. And that has nothing to do with with their capability or anything. That's just because they're playing on a size that really isn't fit for them. And it's unfortunate because they want to match that level. I mean, who wouldn't? If you're an athlete, you're always going to be competitive. You always want to be the best. So when this whole argument of, oh, well, men are better than women, yeah, that's obviously going to affect them and they will want to play at the same level as men. Fine, you can reach that, but you don't need to play on the same field. You just got to get the same views, the same amount of entertainment value, and people will start paying attention. People will start noticing. I mean, you look at you can go on Instagram any day. I mean, us being US citizens, you go on Instagram, right? You think if US were knocked out of the World Cup like they were last year, you would see it every other post. For the Women's World Cup, that simply is not the case. Like you just don't see it. And not even the big people like ESPN, Bleacher Report, Sports Center, you name it. Yes, they'll post about it, but it'll just be one post. Everything else will get 2-3 posts about. Shohei Ohtani crying in a dugout. I've seen more of that than I've seen clips of the US women losing the World Cup or losing their game against Sweden in the World Cup bracket. And again, you want to look at, Megan Rapinoe, who is essentially the face of this whole argument of we need to be getting paid the same as men. We play better. We play whatever you want to call it. We try to put ourselves to the same standard as men. And the fact that she was the one that missed that PK, and after missing the PK, basically just laughed it off, brushed it off. I mean, even like lower tier players. I look at Anthony Edwards for the Timberwolves when he missed that game winning 3-pointer in the playoffs. He was devastated. And it's not even like the Timberwolves had a chance to begin with. But I look at an athlete like Anthony Edwards in that situation and how devastated he was just to miss one shot to end a season that really wasn't going anywhere, compared to a world-class athlete who has been the face for so much, not only for the US women's team, but for women in general, to miss that PK, not only not have it saved, but to just miss the goal completely and to essentially laugh it off and call it like a sick joke. Like, I understand trying to get over those kind of things is tough, but showing, the people that you're playing for, that you're just laughing it off, I feel like there is a little bit of commotion there. And I don't have a problem with it personally, but it is something there.
I feel like something like, I think her her immediate reaction was a little odd.
Yes.
Just her smirk and grin. I feel like that was a little odd, but I feel like she was so stunned at what happened. She was in disbelief. So I don't blame her for that. I feel like also like for her, it's like she missed the thing. It's a terrible situation. Like she felt terribly, but it's like
in her last game too.
She probably just was so stunned. She was just like, I there's no way I meant, but it's like, I don't blame her for that. They were all super devastated when they lost. So just as any athlete should be. So I don't have a problem with that. As for the whole like the whole thing that we're talking about, I think that there are a few solutions to the women's sports thing. As you're talking about like the dimension and field size, in general, for all sports, the dimensions of the field and all the rules are arbitrary. There's no like set the whole like it's all arbitrary. Like in
Yeah,
basketball, for men's basketball, it's 10 feet. Why isn't it 11 feet? Why isn't the rim 12 feet? It's just 10,
exactly.
it's just an arbitrary number. So to make everything equal, it's not it doesn't make sense because men and women's height is not the same. Their weight is not the same. Their strength is not the same. So why have the same exact rules? It's all arbitrary. Everything in sports is arbitrary. A baseball field is 400 feet. Why isn't it 1,000 feet? Why isn't it 200 feet? It's all arbitrary. Everything in sports is arbitrary. We just create the rules. We created rules to fit the men's game the best possible. We didn't create these rules to fit the women's game the best possible. We created these rules to fit the men's game possible. And that because that's what we
Exactly.
did first. That's what society did first. And now what we're doing is that as these women's sports are growing, which is good, they're using the same exact rules in a lot of these sports for men's and women's sports because women are trying to achieve the standard that men have, but they shouldn't try to achieve the standard that men have. They should try to achieve a good standard for women. And it's not
Hmm.
a lesser standard, is they should try to achieve their own standard. It's like
Yeah.
when you're going for something, you don't want to always try to like we're like YouTubers, you're anything in life. You don't try to just go to be exactly like another person. You try to create your own brand, like LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Bryant tried to become the next Michael Jordan. LeBron James is his own LeBron James. He didn't try to become Michael Jordan. He didn't try to become another player. He tried to become his
Hmm.
own player. So it's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't always have to be exactly the same. You shouldn't try to
Yeah.
attain the exact same thing. It
it's
makes no
just it's
sense.
just like it's like an athlete's like natural response. It's like
Yeah.
if they feel like there's room for improvement, they will
Yeah.
strive to get there no matter
Exactly.
how like unreasonable it is.
Exactly.
They will try to get, and you and I as athletes, former athletes, whatever you want to call it, like those expectations were there for us as well, but you
Yeah.
got to know where your limit is, you
It's
know,
not
and
even a
there's no
limit though. It
changing
just
that.
you need to have a set of rules that allows your athletes to succeed.
A
It doesn't put
reasonable
your
goal.
yeah, it doesn't it's like you don't have a 5-year-old playing on a 10-foot basketball rim because they can't throw the ball and get it to the rim. It just doesn't make
Exactly.
sense to have the same standards for like if you can't have the same standards for a 1-year-old baby as you do for a 20-year-old like elite athlete. They're different standards. Like you there's that's what I'm saying. The whole system is screwed up. It's not the men's fault. It's not the women's fault. It's none of their fault. It's just the system in place is the problem. And the problem is that society always expects, oh, the men do this, the women have to do the exact same thing in order to be
Exactly.
successful. And
Exactly.
that's just not true. It's just like just because you can't run as fast or you can't jump as high, that's not a bad thing. It's just that's just how it is. I can't jump as high as LeBron James. Is that a bad thing? No, I'm just
No.
not as athletic as him. It's just that's how
Mhm.
it is. So
Yeah.
it's like not everything has to be exactly set in stone equal. And it's also the same kind of thing. Like all these people come out and they're like, oh, well, women have to adopt a certain personality to grow the sport or
Yeah.
this thing. It's like, no, they
Yeah.
don't. No, they don't.
No.
You need to be you. The way to be successful is you need to be you. And I feel like the reason that the women's college basketball championship got so much viewership this year was because as bad as people wanted to get at Angel Reese and Haley Van
Caitlin
Lith
Clark.
and Caitlin Clark and all of them, they
Yeah.
promoted the sport because they were themselves. They showed their personality, and you have to
They
respect
showed
that.
their
Like
grit. They showed their
they sh-
determination. They wanted to
exactly,
win. That's what sports are about. They
exactly.
want to win. That should be the
Yes.
number one goal. It's not about
Yeah.
it's about the end goal at the end of the day. How you play is important, and that's great. But you gotta have the goal in mind that you want to win. If that
Yeah.
isn't there, if that isn't predetermined, odds are you won't win. If you don't go into a situation confidence, if you don't go into a situation confident, then odds are you'll fail, you won't succeed. Yes, there are times where you have no confidence and you manage to, get it out the bag or whatever, but it's much better to be confident, especially in
Yeah.
sports. Much better to be confident going into a game than it is to be like, oh well, I don't really
Yeah,
know
you
if
got to
I'm going to
believe in
be
yourself.
able
It's
to.
the whole thing. It's just,
Got
and
to
that's why you saw it. You saw
exactly.
these players in the women's college basketball championship, and the reason it was blowing up on every social media platform is because all
Yeah.
these athletes competed hard. They wanted to win, and they showed their personality. They showed their confidence.
Yep.
They showed who they are. They didn't try to fit into the mold of another person. They just showed
Exactly.
their truth, and I feel like that was very important. And I feel like in all these sports, the way to promote women's sports is not to try to compare it to men's sports because they're not the same thing. It's a
Exactly.
different sport. It's like
A
that.
different
That's the reason
animal.
that like it's just you can't. It's not a comparison. Comparison. Everyone says comparison is the thief of joy. It's just you can't. There's no reason to compare it. It's not the same thing. Be yourself. Be authentic. Be your own thing. And then once you do that and you do it consistently over a long period of time and you give it time and you keep working and keep building, then it's
Yep.
going to grow popularity. And like
Yeah.
also you're targeting different audiences. Like the men's sport is women watch it, but it's predominantly men's viewership. Women's
Hmm.
sports it has a higher percentage of women viewing it. You're catering to a different audience. It makes more sense to be yourself and be true to yourself than to try to cater to an audience. You shouldn't try to cater to an audience. You have to be yourself. You have to be your people respect that.
Exactly.
People really respect
It's
it. So I feel
almost
like that.
it's almost like, like trying to like play for attention instead of
Yeah,
like playing for yourself. Because I feel
exactly.
like, like there are like, especially in like, the US women's national team were essentially like the first group of women to make it mainstream that, oh, we should get the same attention and the same amount of pay, whatever, as the men, right? But the thing is that like now that has now turned into, oh, well, they're going to be playing not for the country, not to win, not for the team, but instead playing to try and prove a point that they're equal as the men. But naturally, if you win the World Cup and you win all of these games and you beat everyone outright, then that argument will naturally follow itself. So
Also, they're competing
instead,
against an unattainable. They're competing against an unattainable standard because society. You can't control what
exactly,
society believes.
it
You
just
can't.
doesn't make
They're
sense.
competing for a goal that they can't actually impact because they can't control what people think. You
Yeah.
can't do that. When you're an athlete, you can't control what the perception of you is. Like as great as LeBron James is, half of the population is still going to say Michael Jordan's the GOAT. He could do
Yeah.
anything, and they're still going to say MJ is the GOAT, and that's perfectly fine. That's how the world
And
is. So there's no reason to compete for something that you can't win. I feel like, and also the
exactly.
thing is, like, it doesn't always have to be equal. The U.S. men's team has never won a World Cup, never even sniffed the semifinal, and
Yep.
the women's team has won multiple World Cups. They've been top three every single World Cup except for this one. It's not the same. Not everything has to be the same. Not everything has to
Yep.
be apples to apples. It's not. That's just not how it is. And I feel like the women's sports in general will do much better if they just focus on being on authentic and true to themselves and just
Exactly.
doing what's best for them instead of always focusing on what society is going to do for them because
Yeah.
society you can't control what society is going to do, like you just can't
Yeah.
do that. And I feel like it's I feel it's like I feel bad because I feel bad for them because they're trying to attain a goal that, and they're working very hard to attain a goal that they can't even attain, and it's not even their fault. It's just because the way the society is viewing them and the pressure that
Yep.
society is putting on them, they're trying to attain that goal, and it's not what they're trying to do. It's not like
Yeah.
what they're the best at. So I
There.
think it's just a bad situation, and I feel like the best way to help it, as we said multiple times, is just to stay authentic, to be true to themselves, and just
Yeah.
do what's best for them as athletes because they're great athletes. They're very good at
Without a
what they
doubt.
do. They're the
Without a
best in the
doubt.
world at what they do. So they just need to
Exactly.
focus on doing that and showing their personality and like what they're good at instead of always trying to appease everyone in society who are just idiots that want their specific agenda filled. Like
Exactly.
it's dumb. And then you see it just everything comes out like Megan Rapinoe misses the shot, and then you have all these people just bashing her and from
Yeah.
a very specific audience. It's like you're never
It's
gonna win
like,
with everyone. It's just there's no reason to compete for that.
yeah.
You're trying to go for something that you can't achieve, and that's okay. You don't have to achieve that specific
Mhm.
standard. You don't want that
Yeah.
standard. Trust me. That specific standard, you don't want that standard. So you want to have your
Yeah.
own standard and live by your own rules. You don't want to be trying to be molded into something that you're not. So I feel like they just need to, like what they I feel like women's college basketball is like the leader in this out of everyone
Yeah.
because they did a very good
Because
job.
it's the most pure. I mean, for them,
Yeah.
it's like the rules are so lenient because there's not a like a set commission or a set
Well, also these
there's not
athletes they've tried to break the mold. I feel like that's important. Even like
yeah,
in the med side, you
as
need
they
to break the
should.
mold. All the people that are for example, baseball has the same issue as a lot of women's sports. Is it doesn't get as much viewership because there's not as much personality. It's not
Yep.
as authentic. It's always trying to fit into the mold of it was of like
Hmm.
the very like old conservative United States
Yeah.
watching baseball. It was a different time then, and
Look
they were
at
trying to fit that
golf.
mold. And yeah, it's
Golf
same
is
kind of thing.
exactly the same. Look
Same
at the
kind of
difference
thing.
between the PGA and
And the
Live and how
live.
much
Yeah.
attention Live got
Everything's
just
evolving. I
because
feel
it
like
was out there.
yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So
Everything's evolving, everything's progressing, everything's changing. I feel like you need to go with yourself and change as you want to instead of trying to fit what they did 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's not the right mindset. So I feel like and I feel like it's good to have these like experiences because people like you learn from them. Like you have these experiences.
yeah.
Not you're trying you see that as you're trying to like right now, they're trying to make sure that everything is in line with what the men do. And it's like, that's not what you want. You need to create your own brand. You don't want to
Yeah,
fit into that brand because that
exactly.
brand is, it might be good, but it's not perfect either. So you need to make your own brand. Like you need to create your
Precisely.
own identity. So I feel like
And
it, not everything should be tailored to that.
you also got to look at like, like you have like, like little girls like watching the World Cup, watching the WNBA. Like, yeah, of course, like if they're an athlete, why wouldn't they want to go to that level? And a lot of the
Yeah.
times the argument is, well, they obviously don't pay me as well. I won't get as much attention as say the men do. And it's all like, okay, well, don't compare yourself like to the like play the game how you want to play it. And guaranteed people will come to watch. If you make a name for
Yeah.
yourself, people will
Yeah.
come to watch you play. And that's just how it goes. I mean, you look at sports
Serena Williams,
starting
Serena
was
Williams is one of the most famous athletes in the world. And
exactly,
is she as good as all the men's players? Absolutely not. But she's the best at what she does. She is the best at what she
exactly.
does.
And
She has
she's
her
proud
own
of
brand
that.
and she's proud of that. And she believes in herself. And that's what you need to do. You need to, it doesn't, you need to be, it has to be about the passion. It shouldn't be about the money. It shouldn't be about all that thing. You shouldn't compare yourselves. The NBA, it's like in the NFL, the best running back in the NFL, Saquon Barkley, can't even get a deal. And Jalen Brown, who is a great player, got the highest contract in the NBA history.
Exactly. Like
It's not
money
all going to
doesn't
be equal.
determine how
It's not
good
about
you are.
exactly. It's not all about money. It should be about the like. It should be about the passion, and you need to focus on the passion because when you have passion for something and you go for it, then
Exactly.
the results will come. You need to focus on the passion first, and then all the external results will come. You
Yeah.
can't focus on the external results and then hope that they're going to come because that's just not how it is. So I
Yeah.
feel like the main focus has to just be on the passion and the personality and being yourself. And then as
Exactly.
they continue to build that brand for a long time, it'll eventually grow. And then eventually, like all these people, like Gideon was just a total numbnut going to the women WNBA game and just
Exactly.
like sleeping on the bench. You just can't focus on those kind of people. Like that's just
And then
negative energy.
he's been kicked out of all NBA games. So
Exactly.
to say that like,
Yeah.
like we like the problems are like obvious and there are people, there are haters, whatever. Let them do their
Yeah.
thing
Let them
because at
hate.
the end of the day they will be penalized. And
Yeah.
if
They'll
you
be,
can prove them
but
wrong,
also
don't do it to prove them wrong. Do it for yourself.
exactly. But you have to believe yourself before you have to try to appease someone else's standards. And also, he's being a hater. He's going to these games. He's trying to make fun of them. And it's like, first of all, it gives you publicity, and second of all, it's like, who gives a crap what he thinks? No one
Yeah,
cares.
exactly.
And it makes
Exactly.
it and if you just are like mature about it, it makes him look like an idiot. Like, why is he wasting his time trying to make fun of you? It just makes
That's
him look like a
exactly what
bad person.
happened. That's
Yeah,
exactly what happened.
he literally spent his time to make fun of you guys.
And money, time and money
He spent
to
his time
sit
and money to go,
courtside
yeah,
at a
to go sit
WNBA
courtside and
game.
just go sleep on the bench. He makes
Yeah,
himself look like an idiot, wasting his
that's what it
time.
is.
Don't stoop down to that level. There's no reason to stoop down to that level. You're up here. There's no reason to drop down here. So just I feel like that's the most important thing. They just need to it's hard for them. I agree because it's the same thing you see all these like star athletes like it was like when Giannis got asked, is this season a failure? And Giannis is like, no, this season is not a failure. You don't always win. It's not always about winning. It's a process. Getting to the top is a process. You don't win every time. And I feel
Yep.
like for the US women's team, I feel like it's a very good comparison because this year they didn't make it far in the World Cup. They lost in the round of 16. They've never been out of the top 3 ever in the World Cup, but now this year they lose in the round of 16. I feel like it's good. It shows if you have different teams win, it's a good thing. You need parity. You need there to be a chance that you don't always win. If you always win something, there's no value in it because it
Yeah.
just shows that that's the standard. If you have tons of teams that are competitive and can easily win the tournament, and then some teams that are favorites drop out early, like Germany was ranked second in the world, they drop out in the group stage. That's good for the sport because it shows that it's hard. The whole
Anything can
reason that
happen.
sports
Anything can
anything can happen.
happen.
The reason that everyone watches sports is because anything can happen. It's hard, it's competitive, and that's what you want to see. You don't want to see the same team winning every time. The reason that
Yep.
like also that women's college basketball has gotten better recently is because different teams are in it. Like Iowa's in it. LSU was in it. South Carolina was the best team during the regular season. They didn't make it. And it's like before UConn would win every single year. It's not as fun when you see the same team winning every single year. Even the
Yep.
Patriots dynasty, people didn't want to watch the NFL and the
People
NBA. People
started
were getting
hating on the
tired of the Warriors.
Patriots.
People, yeah, in the NBA, the Warriors, everyone was hating on the Warriors. Now everyone doesn't like the Astros. No one likes the Dodgers. No one likes the Yankees. It's like you need parity. You need different teams to come in and do well. And because first of all, it humbles you as a team because it shows that you can't just show up without working hard and win. You need to have full effort, full intensity, and even that you still might not win. So you need to just have there's luck involved. There's just good performance versus bad performance. Like you need some of that. You can't always have the same team winning. So I feel like what's happening now is good for the World Cup because it shows that if the US won again, it would be like, what's the point of doing this tournament? The US is going to win every time. But if the US loses, it shows like other teams can win. It's competitive.
Yeah,
It shows that the sport is in good health and actually has a very high potential going for the future because it's good to see some parity. It's good to see some teams lose. And also for the US, it's good because it shows we didn't play well enough. We weren't good enough. Carly Lloyd
yeah.
called out the team when they barely made it out of the group stage, and they were like all
Against
happy. And she's
Portugal,
like,
yeah,
"Why are you happy? You didn't play well. You guys shouldn't have even made it out of the group stage." And then it gives them some accountability. It shows that they need to work hard as hard as they work. They need to work harder as well as they thought they performed. They need to perform better. Sometimes it's just not good enough, and that's okay. That's good. You learn from that experience and you build on it. And I feel like that's very important.
absolutely, absolutely, yep. But yeah,
Yeah.
just to end things off, I like again, like the biggest argument is like, oh, we don't get paid as much. Yes, you don't get paid as much, but that is because A, people don't watch it. Let's be real, because that's where a lot of that money comes from. I mean, you look at this Jaylen Brown contract. The only reason why he has that contract is because people are buying Celtics jerseys. Boston fans have always been loyal to, you look at the
Yeah.
Patriots, you look at the Red Sox, they are a loyal community. Like
But
that's
even
just
look
is
at
what
the
it is.
NBA, like even look at the NFL 50 years ago. The highest contract in the NFL in the 1980s was like less than $1 million per year. And now the
Exactly.
highest contract, Patrick Mahomes is getting $50 million a year. So it's like
Yeah. Like
things over time,
sports has grown
it
as
grows.
a whole,
And women's
but
sports haven't been around for nearly as long as men's sports. Men's sports have been around
exactly.
since the late 1800s, early 1900s. A lot of women's sports haven't started until like the 70s and 80s. So it's like it's going to take time for them to catch up, and that's okay. It doesn't you don't always have to compare
That's just
yourself.
the
It's 100 year
process.
gap. It's 100 year
Yeah,
difference. It's not their fault. It's society's fault from 100 years ago. That's just how it is, and you have to keep working hard to get there. And I feel like you can't look at the money and the external results because also you look at a lot of these players, half of these players get more money from just their brand deals and stuff outside of the actual game than they do from the
exactly. Even
revenue. Like,
college athletes are
yeah, I
getting
mean,
paid
Mbappe
now.
got offered $1 billion from Saudi Arabia, and LeBron James has made in his career a total of like 500 something $1 million in his career, and he's one of the best basketball players ever. And Mbappe was going to get more than that for 1 year in Saudi Arabia. It's the money is not the right barometer to measure yourself. You need to measure yourself
Exactly.
by your
The money,
performance.
the money is just a team's commitment to the player. That's all the money stands for, is
It's
how
all like
committed
it's
a
it's that it's the
franchise is.
marketing and
Yeah,
it just you can't control that. It's not the right thing to control. And also as you grow a brand and you develop and you grow popularity, the money will come. It might take time and
exactly.
it's going to take hard work and time and it's not always fair, but eventually it'll come. So I feel like that's the main point is that they just need to like focus like women's basketball's done a great job of this. Focus on the passion and just the intensity and
Yeah,
being true to themselves and just the sport will grow. It just you got to give it time. You got to be persistent. You can't give up. You can't try to feed into society's BS. You just got to keep going and keep pushing. And I feel like
yep,
that'll be very good.
yep.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, World Cup still going on. Championship game is going to be on the 20th of August. Um, so yeah, make sure to watch that. It's a little offset because it's in Australia, New Zealand. But it's definitely been an interesting one to watch this year. I mean, we talk about surprises. US is out. England have a game against Nigeria, which I'm not all confident about watching their game against teams like, Haiti. So, we'll see what happens. If anything else happens, we'll definitely talk about it. But again, like this isn't like a solution to
no,
like the problem or anything like that. It's just a thought. It's
yeah,
just an idea. It's not necessarily our original ideas, but it's just
yeah.
something based off of another argument and a debate that has been going on for years now.
There's no easy solution, and I don't want to
Exactly.
like us to act like there's some easy solution because there isn't. It's not an easy situation, and
Yeah.
it's no one's in particular. It's no one's fault. It's not the men's athletes' fault. It's not the women's athletes' fault. Everyone's trying. It's just that the way that society's constructed it, it makes it hard for them to succeed. It's like it's no
Exactly.
one's fault. Everyone needs to just keep working hard to just promote the brand, and no
Yep.
no one knows it's never going to be perfect, and you just gotta just be it's just some I don't know, just keep grinding. That's all I gotta say. Just keep grinding, keep working harder,
Essentially. Yeah.
and they're doing a
Yeah.
great job. The Women's World Cup this year has it just shows it's getting better and better each time they have a World Cup. It's
More
getting more and more
popular.
popular.
Without a
So
doubt.
you just got to keep going. You just got to keep going, keep pushing, and
Yep.
they're putting out a great product. So you just got to keep going.
Exactly. And to all the sports fans out there, you can't call yourself a sports fan if you're not watching sports that are going on. This is
Yeah,
arguably you know, the most
It's the World
important thing right
Cup.
now.
It's the World Cup. It's one of the
The
biggest
MLB
events.
season is in the middle of the season, which nobody cares about. NBA hasn't
Exactly.
started. Premier League
Yeah.
hasn't started. Like there is genuinely like no excuse other than, oh, well, I just don't want to watch the women play, which is fine.
Yeah.
But then, you know, like
Then
it
you're not a true sports fan,
that
bro.
is where the problem starts.
Yes.
Because the
Yeah.
only way that they're going to fix all these issues is if we start watching these sports. And it's good. It's
Yeah.
still entertaining, but there are ways
Yes.
to definitely improve it. And that's what this episode has been all about. All
Yeah.
we care about.
Yeah.
So with that said, make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter at Dubs Only Sports. Make sure to watch the full episodes on YouTube and on Spotify. Um, yeah, we've got a few things coming up in line. You know, Premier League, like I just said, starting up this weekend, so that'll be interesting stuff. Can't wait to see Tottenham lose every game that we play, so that's cool. And then obviously MLB season coming to a close, the start of the NFL and college football season, which should be very exciting. We haven't
Yep.
really covered those two too much just because we started this kind of at the end of the season last year. So it'll be nice
Yeah.
to go along with the season. It should be a really fun time. Other than that, that's going to do it for this episode. Yeah, we will see you guys in the next one. Peace out, y'all.